welcome. I am Toadflax, teller of gory stories and twisted tales, some true and some not so true. The tale I tell you today is a tale I was told when I was in the Holy Land on crusade with my master, William of Pennington, Knight. And the tale was told to me by young Maleb, the pitch-faced camel jockey from old Baghdad who fell into our company. But of that tale of our adventures I will tell another time, for though it was many years ago, the pain of those years still lingers. But the story that young Maleb told me was this. Long, long ago, in the land of Iraq, in the great city of Baghdad, not as it came later, when it was torn and tattered by war, but in the time of the Caliphate, the Prince of Believers, and the King of Baghdad. And the greatest Caliphate and King of Baghdad there ever was Harun al-Rashid. And in that time, there was a camel trader called Baba Abdallah, who had 80 camels to ply his trade. And his trade was to move goods from here to there, and there to here. He would be paid to transport merchandise and things from Baghdad to Mosul, from Mosul to Damascus, from Damascus to Baghdad to Basra, the great city by the warm sea, and from Basra back to Baghdad. In fact, from place to place, any place, as long as someone would pay him the coin. Now, it so happened that Baba Abdallah, who was getting on to be of advanced years, had transported some loads from Baghdad to Basra and made a handsome profit, and he was well pleased. However, in Basra, trade was slack, and there were many camel merchants like him. Supply and demand being such, his camels returned to Baghdad unladen, and the forage for them, this ate into his profit. Now it so happened that on his way back, he stopped one evening at a water system to water his camels and rest overnight before returning to Baghdad, when there came upon him a Darwish, an old and venerable fellow of the faithful of the Mohammedans, who spend their time in holiness and prayers and discourses on the Holy Quran, the Holy Book, and who eschew all worldly wealth. In fact, they were so pious, the Caliphs, the Prince of Believers, and the Kings of Baghdad, they would shut the gates of the city upon them. For a king is a king, whatever his faith, and as a king, like all kings, they enjoyed being a king too much, and they didn't want the pious Darwish running about the city complaining to the populace that the king should be living a more holier life. So they were always locked out of the city, and some people came to believe that the Darwish, who were relegated to wandering the vast unknown tracts of the great deserts, learned secret things, knew things that mortal men were not to know. So they said. However, At the water cistern, Baba Abdallah was watering his camels. The Dervish came to take water, no doubt. A fire was made for the night. Each sat down, and as is the custom of the desert when travellers meet, they share their food. They explain who they are, what they are, where they have been, and where they are going. And it was during this conversation between Baba Abdallah and the venerable aged Dervish that the Dervish said, Come now, Baba Abdallah, tell me of your hopes and dreams. Well, said Baba Abdallah, I have been a camel merchant and trader for many years. I have acquired 80 camels, but I grow weary and I grow old, and profit seems to be hard to come by. There are many camel traders, and so this reduces the work available to all. It was my hope that one day I would make such great fortune in my trade that I would be able to buy a grand house in Baghdad itself, that I would acquire a great and beautiful and virtuous wife who would give me many sons, who I would expect to earn their way, and I would say, take so many camels here, go down to the market, find some trade and deliver it to Damascus, and find your trade to come back. And to another I would say, take so many camels to the great port city of Basra, and again find trade there and find trade that. And to a third I might say, make your way to Mosul with goods to be transported and goods to be transported back. But alas, Darwish, I grow older and older. My profits do not increase, and though I have earned and keep 80 camels, I fear I may not achieve my dream. The Dervish looked at Baba Abdallah, looked at the sand, taking his walking stick, twirled it around in the sand, and said, You know, Baba Abdallah, who can say how fortune will change a man's life, how it might be written by him who is above? What labourer who tills the fields does not secretly hope one day that his spade will unearth a buried treasure? What fisherman does not hope that in casting his nets he will bring forth not just a bountiful shoal of fish, but also pearls and lost gems of the sea? Baba Abdallah, raise up your camels and follow me, for you, fate has changed your life. So Baba Abdallah gathered his camels and followed the Dervish as they trekked off into the far corners of the desert, where the camel trains never go and where no man would want to go. And in the distance, Baba Abdallah could see some low hills where the Dervish was leading him. As they got nearer and nearer these hills, he could see that they were riven with gullies and dried up riverbeds and little cliff faces. And the Dervish led poor Baba Abdallah and his 80 camels to a narrow opening between two of the hills, so tight he could barely squeeze a camel down it. But the Dervish took him down, and Baba Abdallah led his 80 camels until they came to an opening. The Dervish said, Baba Abdallah, gather around your camels, have them lay belly down on the sand, for they are soon to be loaded with a change for your life. And as Baba Abdallah did this, tapped his camels at the back of the knee so they would sit down on the sand belly down, he noticed how the Dervish gathered up some brushwood, laid it against the cliff face in the side of the hills, lit a small fire, and then threw some incense upon it, saying some strange words which Baba Abdallah in a language had never heard before. and before he looked, there came up a pink cloud, which, when it had dissipated, showed that the bare rock was now inscribed with the makings of a door. And as Baba Abdallah watched, these two doors swung open, and from within there was a great cavern, a cave, and from this cave came a great golden glow. The Darwish turned to Baba Abdallah. "There, Baba Abdallah, go in, fill all the saddlebags of your many camels, and you will live a better life than you have ever lived." So Baba Abdallah went inside the cave. He could not believe there were heaps and heaps of golden coins, big round golden dirhams, each one as thick as his thumb. And quickly Baba Abdallah scooped them up and started to fill the saddlebags of his camels, thanking Allah for his change of fate, that it was written that he should meet this particular Darwish in the desert this night. But the Darwish looked at Baba Abdallah and smiled. "Baba Abdallah, why do you waste your time with such trinkets? Go further into the cavern. You will find much more to your taste." So Baba Abdallah went inside the cavern a little bit further, and there he found mounds of precious gems, diamonds, emeralds, each one as big as a fingernail, each one pure and crystal-like, that you could hold it up and see straight through it, even in the golden glow of the cavern. "Baba Abdallah," shouted the Darwish, "fill your saddlebags with these, for each one alone is worth a saddlebag full of golden coin." So quickly Baba Abdallah filled the saddlebags of his 80 camels, all the time giving thanks to Allah for his good fortune, praising the humble, holy Darwish for his beneficence and share of his secret knowledge. And as his camels were loaded, he watched the Darwish, and the Darwish went to a bowl at the side of the cave, a very big bowl, and inside of which were all sorts of little pots of gold. And as he watched, the Darwish went up to the bowl, picked up a golden pot, and put it secreted within his bosom. "What can that be, good kind Darwish?" asked Baba Abdallah. Oh, it's nothing, Baba Abdallah. It's just a little pomade, a little paste that I might want to smear on an old man's weary eyes." And as the Darwish came forth from the cavern, he turned. He said again words of a strange language that Baba Abdallah had ever heard before, and the stone doors of the cavern closed. And then it looked as if it was a simple rock face, that there had never been stone doors or any hint of the richness within the cliff. "Now, Baba Abdallah, you have what you need." But Baba Abdallah was very grateful. "Oh, good and kindly Darwish, you have seen so well of my needs, and I thank you kindly." He kissed the old man profusely. He offered up blessings to the Darwish, that he was hope him who is above all would hear and bless him. And he said, "Darwish, old man, I have 80 camels laden with diamonds and emeralds and rubies. I give you 40 of them. I'm not a greedy man. I have 40 camels loaded. You have 40 camels loaded. Each of those gems must be worth a fortune, a king's fortune. But this I gladly share with you. And the Dervish said, well, are you sure, Baba Abdallah? But if you insist, please do. And so they led the 80 camels, 40 for Baba Abdallah, 40 for the Dervish, back out into the desert and back to the camel trails. And as they came to the trail between Baghdad and Basra, they made their parting. I, of course, shall journey on, said the poor, nice, venerable old Dervish, to Basra, and I shall to return to Baghdad to a much better life than I could ever have hoped, said Baba Abdallah. So Baba Abdallah jumped on his camels and led his 40 away. But as his camels traced their footsteps in the sand on the trail back to Baghdad, Satan, the stoned, whispered into Baba Abdallah's heart, Baba Abdallah, what does that old Dervish want with 40 camels full of emeralds, rubies, diamonds? They're supposed to be holy men, not spenders of wealth. And Baba Abdallah thought, this could be true. So turning his camels round, he trekked back to the Dervish, who had yet to get on his camels and depart. Baba Abdallah jumped down. Dervish, oh faithful Dervish, I've been thinking. I have 40 camels, and I have given you 40 camels laden with great wealth. But you are a Dervish, a holy man. What would you need with all this wealth? It is of no use to you, and you have sworn to follow the precepts of the holy book, the Holy Quran. The Dervish answered with a smile, yes, that is true, good friend Baba Abdallah. But be assured, I do not intend to spend any of this wealth on myself. Each and every little piece, diamond, ruby, emerald, will be spent on the sick and the lame, the needy, the poor, the destitute. Not one scintilla of that wealth will I be spending on myself. Baba Abdallah was somewhat taken aback by this humble, worthy answer. But not for long. But, Dervish, I have to tell you, think on this. Camels, of all Allah's creations, they are the most stubborn, obstinate creatures. I have been working with them all of my manly life. I know how to control them. I can marshal 100 camels as easily as one. But you are old, frail. I fear for you, Dervish. The camels might throw you into the sand and trample upon you and then wander the desert, leaving you for dead. Do you think so? Said the Dervish. Then I'll tell you what, Baba Abdallah. Why don't you pick out 20 of the best camels of the 40 you've given me, and you take them with you, and the 20 remaining will be more than enough for my needs to help the poor and the needy of this world. So reluctantly, Baba Abdallah took the 20 camels, tied them in a string back to his 40, and led his 60 away towards Baghdad. But again, Satan, the stoned, whispered in his heart, Fool, Baba Abdallah, he's tricked you. You've left him with 20 camels. But he knows the secret of the cavern. He can return to it again and again, refilling those 20 camels so he could have 120 camels worth of jewels. And you walk away with 60? You are fooled, Baba Abdallah, fooled. So with his lust for wealth inflamed, Baba Abdallah turned his camels round again and returned to the Darwish. Darwish, I'm thinking, even 20 camels. That's too much for an old man like you. Even one camel is too much. This is what I propose. I shall take all the camels, and you will, if any time you want to go back to that cavern full of gold and jewels, it is within your means to do so. But the Darwish was not angry. Do you really think so, Baba Abdallah? Well, I suppose, you know camels more than I do. And so Baba Abdallah tied the last 20 camels up to his 60 and intended to return to Baghdad with all 80 camels laden with jewels, diamonds, rubies and emeralds. But the greed in Baba Abdallah's heart was unfulfilled and still raged. Come to think of it, Darwish, said Baba Abdallah, that little gold pot you secreted away in your breast, I fancy having that. Really, Baba Abdallah? You don't need that, said the Darwish. And Baba Abdallah was taken aback. I've just taken 40, 20, all the camels off him. But now he pulls a face at such a little golden pot. There must be something special about it. Darwish, said Baba Abdallah, I know your secret, I think. I will wager all 80 camels worth of diamonds, rubies and emeralds that the secret of your wealth is in that little gold pot. You will give it to me, or I will fist your mug. And the poor old Darwish was very frightened. No, Baba Abdallah, please, when I tell you it's just a pomade to help my weary eyes, I do not lie overmuch. Tell me, said Baba Abdallah, gripping hold of the Darwish and shaking him like one shakes a bag of frail bones. Yes, I'll take it away. Take it, Baba, take it. How does it work, said Baba Abdallah. What does this paste do? Where does it come from? And the Darwish told all, nearly. It is made by the earth jinn, Baba Abdallah, the invisibles, not by those who fly in the sky, but those who live under the ground. And when a man takes that paste and he smears a small smidgen over his left eye and opens that eye while keeping his right eye shut, he can see under the ground. Baba Abdallah wasn't too impressed, so he said, here's the pot, put it on my left eye, I will close both my eyes. So the Darwish took the pot. Baba Abdallah closed both of his eyes. The Darwish smeared a smidgen on Baba Abdallah's left eyelid, and he opened only that left eye. Oh, what a transformation! For Baba Abdallah saw not this world as we see it. All that world was dark to him. But the world underneath the sand, underneath the earth, all was transparent. He saw all the treasures that might have ever been lost in the desert. All the hidden gems under the earth, even the gold and silver glistening in the rock. And he closed his eyes, opened both of them together, and he saw this world, the desert, and the Darwish stood in front of him. So this is the secret of your wealth. Said Baba Abdallah, and now the greed had taken him. I bet you still trick me. I bet if I put it on both eyes and open them, not only will I be able to see the wealth under the ground, I will be able to control it. I will have the power to bring it forth from the earth with words alone. I won't have to dig it up. Oh no, Baba Abdallah, that would be fatal to do such a thing. But Baba Abdallah wasn't having it. He shook the Darwish and he agreed to put it on both eyes. So Baba Abdallah closed both his eyes, The dervish, as commanded, smeared the paste lightly over both eyelids. Baba Abdallah opened his eyes and saw nothing, for he was completely blind. And as he stood not knowing what to do, he heard the dervish walk away with the golden pot in his hand, gathered up the 80 camels of Baba Abdallah, laden with great wealth of diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and depart into the darkness. And poor Baba Abdallah wandered round in the desert completely blind, and he would have been lost, but fortunately for him there came a camel train from Basra returning to Baghdad, and they found him. They heard his cries in the darkness, and taking pity on him, they took him back to Baghdad. Being blind, having no camels, no family to care for him, the only trade poor old Baba Abdallah could make in the world was that of a beggar. And there he sat at the Basra gate in Baghdad. And as the merchants and the populace travelled from Baghdad to Basra, from Basra to Baghdad, he would shout out and beg for alms, that in the hope that they would take pity on his blindness. And when they did, when the poor people gave him his alms, whether they were rich or poor, a lot or a little, whether they were high-born or low-born, he always grabbed hold of their gowns, their robes, and he would not let them leave him until they had slapped him on the head, that he might ever be reminded of his stupid, foolish greed, that he had been presented with everything he had ever wanted, yet he had cast it all away out of conceited greed and nothing else. And such is the story of Baba Abdallah, the camel merchant of old Baghdad.